Hello to you there and welcome. It's Frontier Opening Bell with me, Faith Agbetuya. It's nice to have you join us on the show. And I have with me Executive Editor here at Frontier Africa Reports, Bosin Omofai. It's really great having you on the show today. Thank you so much for coming on. So we get very quickly with the show right now, starting up with a look at the closing figures in selected African markets. We took a look at a number of five markets yesterday. We can see here that a majority of the markets closed on the red zone. We have here that Nigeria recorded a 0.10% drop in the oil share index, while the Ivory Coast recorded 0.50%, a positive close, which was a good one. Egyptian exchange 1.64% drop. Kenya recorded a 0.61% drop. And South Africa had a 2.24% drop. That was a marginal loss, if you ask me. We'll start very quickly with a look at the East African market, starting with the Kenyan's High Court, a ruling that minimum tax is unconstitutional, and it has badged the Kenyan Revenue Authority. Centum Investment is planning to sell real estate subsidiary, and in the Bank of Uganda, the gold export receipt. A report from the Bank of Uganda has shown that it has dropped 51% to 1 trillion Ugandan shillings and none in July. In Tanzania, investment has hit $2.98 billion in 5 months to August. All of that in the East African markets. I don't know, Wilson, would you like to speak on some of this?
Thank you, Faith. I think one of the story there is the Kenyan High Court throwing out the suit brought forward by some who are challenging the Kenyatta's administration for that 1% minimum tax has been considered as unconstitutional. That tax, 1% minimum tax was introduced earlier in the year or late last year, became effective in 2021, which was to charge 1% flat tax rate on every businesses in Kenya, whether you're making profit, whether you're declaring a loss, you just pay 1% tax minimum. And that was what the High Court there has just thrown out and said that's unconstitutional, and told the Kenya Revenue Agency, the tax agency, not to charge it on companies and all of that. Whether this case will go all the way to appeal and all the way to the Supreme Court is anyone's guess. But for now, the High Court in Nairobi has ruled that the 1% minimum tax is unconstitutional. Good news for Kenya, by the way, when you look at the travel ban by the UK, the US yesterday released its own news or information about those who are allowed to step on the US soil who are foreigners. You will have to be fully vaccinated. That's the news yesterday. That will be effective November. So UK removing Kenya from the red list travel ban is good news. The head of the World Travel and Tourism Council was speaking on Bloomberg, another international news channel, on CNN yesterday evening, and was talking about how much United States is losing, more than about $200 million every day because of the travel ban. Globally speaking, the head of the World Travel and Tourism Council, WTTC, she said, look, the world leaders need to look beyond their own countries, four corners of their country, and see, globally speaking, and see the need, why they need to let global travel. They need to ease some of the restrictions around the COVID-19 pandemic travel and allow folks to move into travel before the total collapse of the travel and industry, and by extension, tourism, leisure, and a few other ancillary sectors that are associated to basic travel business, by the way. Centum Investment looking to sell real estate subsidiary. That's news. When we have more details on that, everyone will know. But not so good news, as you rightly showed there, that Uganda's gold exports sunk by about 50% in the first 6 months of the year. There was not even a single export in the month of July. They need to really work on this, by the way, whether that this is related to the COVID-19 pandemic or they got a whole lot of issues locally to deal with, but it has to be really dealt with. Other countries are making some good fortunes out of gold right now.
Go on. Very true, very true. Thank you so much there. So let's move quickly away from East Africa and get on to the western region of Africa, starting here with the news that Nigeria's SEC is setting a new custody rule for managed funds. We have here that the Nigerian Securities and Exchange Commission (SEC) is implementing 100% custody requirement for collective investment schemes. Nigeria will today price its $3 billion and up to $6.3 billion Eurobond, revealing the yields on global debt securities of about 4 tenors as the investors call for bonds continue today. It also held yesterday Monday. First Bank of Nigeria says that its network of international money transfer operators, or the IMTOs, has been expanded as part of efforts to increase the level of diaspora remittance inflow into Nigeria. Cameroon is looking to raise 25 billion CFA on BEAC markets. Democratic Republic of Congo's forex reserves has hit a historic record of $3.3 billion coming from the central bank governor. Starting with the news of the Democratic Republic of Congo's forex reserve hitting a historic high of $3.3 billion. That's a good one for me. And if you ask me, Bosin, I can only wish that very soon we'll hear that such will be replicated in Nigeria. Don't you think so?
Well, the DR Congo faith is a very interesting story. DR Congo ought to have FX reserves in double digits or triple digits if you consider the level of natural resources in both agriculture and mining in that country. So $3.3 billion is a drop in the ocean, by the way. This is one of the largest landmass countries on the continent, one of the most endowed. If you look at the map of DRC, it's at the center of the continent, so to speak, sub-Saharan in a manner of speaking. So, because it's actually technically the capital of Central Africa region for the continent. So it has a huge deposit, and there's been so much being taken out of Congo, DR Congo for decades and decades by Europeans, Americans, and other miners who have enriched themselves, globally speaking, while Congo DRC is still left the way it was. So, but it's quite good news that the incumbent president, Tshisekedi, is doing a whole lot to bring DRC back up. They're spending a whole lot more into agricultural sector in terms of annual budget. They're devoting more than half of the annual budget now to develop agriculture and not just the mining sector, which is technically in the back pockets of the European and other international mining companies, as it were. The country also has the Inga Dam 3 project, which is a major one for electricity, which South Africa is looking to partner with and all of that. So DR Congo should have FX reserves in dozens and dozens of billions of dollars, by the way. $3.3 billion is just still scratching the surface in a manner of speaking. If you look at how the global market was last year, even despite the pandemic, you can see how mining companies made great gains in South Africa because mining resources, metal prices went hot wire, with the exception of diamond last year. Almost every other metal prices jumped significantly. Even as we speak right now, platinum is about 3,000, aluminum is about $3,000 per metric ton. So DR Congo could do a whole lot more in terms of FX reserves. But if you look at what Nigeria is doing, to get back to the top of the story, your story is about the rule for custodial rule. This is not actually a new rule in the manner of speaking. Try to check that up again. It's been existing. But what the SEC says is now going to implement it and ask all the managed funds or collective investment schemes, as it's technically known in the rule book, to provide independent custodial system for all collective investment schemes and assign custodial banks so that the custody of the stocks that are in the basket or by these managed funds will not reside with the asset managers, but will independently warehoused. The whole idea is to ensure that there is transparency and accountability, and the fund managers, any one of them will decide, anyone who decides to act funny on those things, assets may not be able to have it. So try to separate it. It's also to ensure that in case a managed funds is going down, investors are also protected. So this is part of the investor protection program of the Nigeria Securities and Exchange Commission. Yeah. So now they need to appoint independent custodian for it, just like you have for pension funds or pension assets. They also have a custodian bank that will warehouse the funds that are coming into those managed funds, whether it's an equity fund or it's a bond fund or it's a US dollar fund, whatever fund, as long as it's a collective scheme, you need an independent custodian. And I think this is really good, again, Faith, if you ask me, because now we're having a whole lot of online folks who want to do brokerage businesses, who want asking investors, we're running a managed fund, we can provide you 1,000% every day, blah, blah, blah. You will need now to appoint independent. This is another a layer of ring fencing or firewall around managed funds so that investors don't get caught up in some Ponzi schemes and all of that, who just collect folks' money and just disappear overnight. Now they need to have a custodian bank and have an independent custodian that will warehouse the assets. I think it's going to be good news from the SEC. The first bank looking to increase the IMTOs to boost diaspora exchange flow. First Bank had always been one of the leading banks in Nigeria, historically speaking, when it comes to international money transfers. In fact, it was the first and the only bank in Nigeria that was working with MoneyGram for many years before a few other banks complained to the central bank. Then it became liberalized, and you had UBA and a few others brought in. Then MoneyGram came in. Then it became, now we have about 50 or more of IMTOs in Nigeria. We can also do a whole lot more. The banks can do a whole lot more to get more diaspora inflows into Nigeria. The country sorely needs it. But Nigeria's pricing is Eurobond today in the afternoon. We're keeping our eyes on that with the DMO. Cameroon is also looking to raise 25 billion CFA franc on the East African system currency market, which is the BEAC, because you remember Cameroon is part of the Congo DR, the Central African market, the CEMAC region, in the manner of speaking. So that is also good news, as it were. Thank you.
Okay, great. Moving away from West Africa, let's get very quickly into the Southern African markets. The cabinet there has okayed tougher greenhouse gas emission targets. Goldman Sachs has hired Barclays Simon Denny to run South Africa's unit. PGMS producer Northam buys back 2.4 billion rands on shares. And Kavango Resources has renewed licenses for its LVR project in Botswana. Does any of this story or news items interest you, Wilson?
I'm interested in everything, if you ask me. If it's money and it's moving and it's economy or it's business, I'm interested.
Okay,
So
you can
I'm
just speak
interested
on
in
that one or
everything.
two just for the
We
one.
just don't have time for everything, Faith. That's just it. But I
Okay.
think it's good that
Really?
the U.S. Parliament or the cabinet, the President Ramaphosa's cabinet has the tougher greenhouse gas emissions targets. This is going to go to ESCOM, it's going to go to SASO, the rest of them. And they're going to find out how they're going to deal with it. And the banks that are also funding them. Last week, First Rank says it's no longer putting any of his money in anyone who is doing coal business in South Africa. We're all counting down, Faith, to remember, to the COP26 conference in November. So
Right,
that is
correct.
one issue right now. Everybody, and of course, the ongoing UN General Assembly is also touching on climate change. The US president is talking about it. The whole world is heating up. Weather conditions have changed. The oceans are pumping up. You can see the amount of flooding and a whole lot of flash floods happening. We had one in Abuja, in Nigeria, just a few days ago. It was quite destructive. So this is the time for everyone to keep one permanent eye on climate change, greenhouse emissions. Some companies are beginning to sell their carbon credits in South Africa, for example. That is also good news. We need to take this very seriously. And if there's any conversation right now on the front burner, on the front page, it is about climate change. Goldman Sachs is keening into the South African markets, trying to dig in very well into the Africa's number one financial supermarket, which is South Africa, and hiring Barclays Simon Denny to run the South African unit is good news. That's the market that Nigeria's Access Bank also went into a few months ago and opened store there, because whether you like it or not, South Africa will still play a major role as a financial supermarket for the continent. The Kavango Resources renewing its licenses in Botswana. Again, it's all about the diamond. Botswana is the capital of diamond extraction on the continent. So give it to them in Botswana. Again, we've seen the ultra rich and the wealthy people around the world buy more diamonds since the first quarter of this year. A number of weddings are beginning to take place in Europe and United States because of the vaccination. So folks are saying, yes, I do. I love you. And all those diamond necklaces that you ladies love very well, Faith and all of that. beginning to come into focus. So folks are getting a whole lot more married and all of that. And those who are doing wedding anniversaries, no longer on Zoom, but you can have a small number of people. You can do it in person. Those things are beginning to come back. So Botswana is back in business as the diamond capital, one of the diamond capitals of the world.
Great. We'll draw the curtain of the show today with a look at top stories in the northern region of Africa. We'll start off with the news that Libyan Prime Minister withdraws oil minister's decisions to oust NOC chair. And the FDB, AIB, EBRD has a joint presentation on private sector development in Morocco, while Morocco's central bank is set to buy back extra foreign currency from local banks, and Sudan accepts Turkey's mediation over border disputes from Ethiopia. Very great and interesting news there. But just as we draw the curtain of the show, I'd like you to just quickly touch on this story on Morocco Central Bank. Sir, making a move to buy back extra foreign currency from local banks. What do you see to be the effect of this move?
Okay, this is a very interesting story because why is Morocco's central bank buying back extra foreign currency from the local banks? Because Morocco is a highly industrialized economy. They have aircraft businesses, repair in Morocco. I saw one of those very interesting stories on CNN about a week ago. I've known about it for years, by the way. But again, seeing the facilities that are available in Morocco in repairing aircrafts. Now, this is one big business, for example. And if you look at the entire Moroccan economy, it's highly industrialized, far ahead of Nigeria, pairing alongside Egypt, by the way, and coming slightly behind South Africa as an industrialized and manufacturing hub. The Europeans doing a whole lot of industrial manufacturing with Morocco, a whole lot of exports. So they're getting a whole lot of FX inflows, by the way, because if you want to bring in your aircrafts to repair, whether you are Bombardier from Brazil or you are whatever, or Gulfstream, whatever it is, you will have to pay in foreign currency into the accounts of banks in Morocco. So the central bank is just saying, look, if you banks are sitting on excess dollars, I can buy a bit of it from you into the system. That is what we're saying about Nigeria, that we need to increase FX inflows, the supplies, rather than everybody fighting over the demand side. Demand will take care of itself if you take care of the supply side. If the supply is very short, there's going to be a whole lot of fight at the demand end of it. So, and most of the demands could be frivolous, quoting the central bank in the manner of speaking. But if you have an industrialized economy, Faith, if you have an economy in which the banks are earning export inflows and they have a whole lot of it, now the central bank in Nigeria is selling to the banks when the banks ought to be selling to the central bank. So you see that we're running a bit of a lopsided system here in which the banks are very short of dollars, whereas they ought to be in dollars and they can sell to the central bank as the case may be. That is how the system ought to work. But until Nigeria gets itself out of this problem of leaning on a whole lot of FX spending, scarce FX to import into the country, and you don't have industrial production to export to earn FX inflows, then we're going to keep going round in circles as we're currently doing. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much for your thoughts. Thank you for your thoughts there, Bosin. It's really great talking to you. Bosin Omofai, executive editor here at Frontier Africa Reports. Really great conversation with you this morning on the show. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. Thank you for joining us on Frontier Unveils today. I'll see you again tomorrow. I am Faith Agbituya. Saying bye for now.